our people. It's Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming up, is there any truth to one team having another's number, like the Bills have had of late with the Dolphins? We check recent history. All the pregame attention has been on the two offenses for Buffalo and Miami, but which team has the better defense? And we talk with NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe for the latest on the Dolphins down in South Florida. It's Division Week. Let's go! Glad you can be with us here on Bills by the Numbers. Bills Hall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills insider Chris Brown with you. And this Week 3 game between the Bills and Dolphins was being hyped before the Bills even played their Monday night game against Tennessee. Tua Tagovailoa, who has been a lightning rod for criticism, leads the league in passing and has now won 8 of his last 9 starts. Tyreek Hill leads the league in receiving yards. The national media has been impressed with what the Dolphins have done the first 2 weeks in victories over New England and Baltimore. But do those wins pass the smell test, Steve?
Well, yeah, I like the fact that they bounced back from Baltimore, and if a team lets up like Baltimore did, Miami's good enough to take it away from them. And the first week 1 against the New England Patriots, you knew it was going to be a struggle, and to go in there and beat Bill Belichick again, they've been really good at doing that down in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a win is a win, no question about it, and to hang that many points on a Baltimore team just lets you know how buttoned up you've got to be to put a game away. Baltimore was up 21 points in the fourth quarter of that game, and it got away from them. And it wasn't there was a couple of mistakes, no question about it, but Miami was right there to pounce on them when it happened. And there was a different sense about the Miami team in the second half. I'll say that. So, yeah, you've got to be happy with the way Tua's playing. 8 wins out of his last 9 starts is no accident.
Right, and I don't want to dismiss what the Dolphins have done the first 2 weeks. I've always had respect for their defensive unit, which ironically is having some issues, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I think they finally have a guy that knows how to draw up an offense in Mike McDaniel, quite frankly. They've been floundering with their offensive coordinators. They had co-offensive coordinators last year, and we thought that was going to be a disaster, and it was. It was a mess.
It was a mess.
And now they've got a singular voice, a guy that actually knows what he's doing, comes from a proven coaching tree off Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco in Mike McDaniel, and off they go. Now, all that being said, yes, New England and Baltimore look like 2 quality wins, but I think we're learning that New England and Baltimore aren't the teams we remember them to be over the past decade. They're not the powerhouses that you expect to crank up 11 or 12 victories a season and make a run in the playoffs every year.
This is not the 2000 Ravens defense, no question about it. And the Patriots offense is not what it was.
It's a pop-gun offense.
That's right, it is. But they still find ways to play well, and we've seen the Patriots. Anytime you beat that team, it's a quality win, in my opinion. Even in with the situation today, they're just hard to beat. But these two offense in this game, the Miami offense and the Bills offense, this has all the earmarks of a track meet. But there are some differences on the other side of the ball that may come to light.
So as much as you want to give the Dolphins credit when it comes to playing the Bills, everyone is comparing their offensive units because of where Miami's passing game currently sits, which is top of the league. But what everyone is overlooking, as you mentioned, the 2 defenses in this matchup. Since the start of last season, the Bills have the league's number 1 scoring defense, total defense, pass defense, big play defense, takeaway defense, and third down defense. Some might say, well, you're counting all of last year. This year is this year. Okay, fine. Going off of the first 2 games, Buffalo has the number 1 defense in the AFC, number 2 in the league, number 1 run defense after facing Derrick Henry, number 1 pass defense in the AFC, second in the league, number 1 sack defense, number 1 first down defense, and number 1 opponent passer rating defense with an opponent passer rating of 51. Is this where we'll see the biggest difference between these 2 teams?
Yeah, and we still, and like you said, and we're all qualifying it at least for the first 4 weeks of the season, where this is not last year's team, it's this year's team, but you're playing the defending world champions and you're playing the number 1 seed in the AFC, and you throttled them. Those have to be considered quality wins. And the Bills lumped them up. on both sides of the ball. 72-17 is a fat gap. So, yeah, right now I still believe the Bills will be favored in this game, but it's a division game. These teams know each other extremely well. You would think, except for the fact that it's a new coaching staff in Miami, the personnel aren't going to be intimidated by one or the other. So I think you're going to get the best game possible. Miami's going to show up and play well. But there's a good reason why Buffalo's going to be favored.
I think the Bills' defense still doesn't get enough credit, and we kind of know why. The Bills might have the best quarterback in football, so he's going to get a lot of the attention, deservedly so. But as I said back in April, I was excited about what they added along their defensive line, even beyond Von Miller, all the defensive tackles they added. They've made the biggest impact on this team for a defense that was already best in the league, Steve. I mean, a 51 opponent passer rating? Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. You want to know what Miami's is? It's 114.4. It's 30th in the NFL. I mean, they're also allowing an NFL worst 9 yards per pass attempt and a completion percentage of over 71% that ranks 28th. The Dolphins' defense, which they kept intact and kept the coordinator for continuity.
It's still there, and it disappeared.
That's been the disappointment through the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'll say this, too. And there's always going to be this. You're going to get the Miami Dolphins coming into this game with, I think, not only Tua, but the rest of them are going to come in with a big chip on their shoulder because Josh Allen has owned them.
Oh, they've been wiping the floor with the Dolphins.
And that doesn't go unnoticed. They want a piece of this. The Dolphins will want a piece of the Bills because of what's happened in the recent past.
All right, so let's take that and discuss that because we've heard the old adage, oh, that team just has our number.
Right.
We saw it for years with Tom Brady in New England. Oh, he just has the Bills' number. Brady had a lot of teams' numbers, to be quite honest with you. We know Josh Allen's impressive record against the Dolphins, 7-1, and almost single-handedly won the only time that he lost when Charles Clay dropped a ball in the end zone, which would have won that game. He'd be 8-0. Allen also has 21 passing touchdowns against the Dolphins since 2018. It's the most by any QB against any opponent in the league over that span. So does he have the Dolphins' number?
Seems like it.
Right.
I don't want to say, yeah. He has played really, really well. And he's played really well down there too.
Yes.
You and I both, on the play that you're talking about, and the first time he played him in Miami where they lost on the last play of the game on a drop pass, you and I both looked at each other and go, that guy, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Josh is
there's
the
your
guy.
franchise
There's
quarterback.
your franchise. In a loss, we thought that. Because he literally piggybacked the entire team and a fan base.
And he's corkscrewing Kiko Alonso into the ground.
He absolutely took that game over from start to finish. There was nobody else on the Bills who had the kind of game or was even in the same stratosphere as him that game. So I don't know why that is. There is no really tangible reason why you can do that. But I'll say this, and I was asked this week, is it harder to play in the heat or is it harder to play in the cold? Let me tell you something. The cold is hard. It hurts. The heat is a gift for these guys. Everybody says, oh, the humidity and heat. Yes, it is. You got to hydrate and all that. But, man, oh, man, the heat doesn't hurt when you're sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, you stay warm.
You're fine. You feel great. You take a little water. It's great to be out in that stuff. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the Bills thrive in that and Josh himself thrives in it down there. But I'm telling you what. If there is a guy that has the number of a team, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen rips it when he goes to Miami.
Yeah. I want to try to look at it a different way, in terms of a player having another team's number. To me, it's just about one team being significantly better than the other. Now, that doesn't mean the lesser opponent can't put together a one-game performance that gets them a win. I mean, the two times that the Bills legitimately beat Tom Brady, Brady threw 4 picks in each of those games. The 2003 game, the opener that went 31-0 Bills, Brady threw 4 picks. The 2011 Week 3 game that they upset him here, last-second field goal at the end, Brady threw 4 picks. Those are the means by which I think the Dolphins could get a win against Josh Allen if he just has an awful day or they bait him into some bad decisions.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of – the turnover margin is always the great equalizer. If the Dolphins can come up with some muff kicks – or some interceptions, or some recovered fumbles, yeah, that's absolutely on the table because you can't outperform turnovers as an offense. You just can't get it done. It's just you need too many possessions, and there's just not enough to go around. But barring that, there's no question the Bills overall. Now, you can say, hey, two in their offense are playing as well as Josh Allen and the Bills' offense.
They are production-wise.
Absolutely. Production-wise, they are. Defensively, not so much. And that's the difference. Because if you get into a track meet and your offense gets stopped and has to punt twice, that's 2 possessions down, and it's where you go down by 10 points or 6 points, even if you hold them to 2 field goals.
Points.
Or it could be 14 points.
Yeah.
That's a big swing.
And that's, and for me, when we're talking about this guy having this team's number and all of that stuff, Allen is today's Brady. Like, Brady had the number of a lot of teams. The Bills experienced it firsthand twice a year, so it hurt more. Well, Allen's kind of that guy. He's the baddest cat on the block, and it's going to be very difficult to beat him, whether it's the Dolphins or anybody else.
Certainly, there are guys who have teams' numbers, but the problem is this. Those teams that you face just aren't good enough to dial up a defense that will stop that guy. Because even if you got it covered, he's open. He tucks it under his arm, and he's a locomotive. He makes something happen. He extends a play beyond your ability to cover it up. He just makes a play that there's no defense for because it just asks too much of the guys. And he's got too much help with him out there. With Steph Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, James Cook, Motor Singletary, all those guys. There's just too much help. Dawson Knox. And so when things come apart, even when you've got it dialed up as a defense, it bites you. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to defend.
All right, we now transition to the numbers game where we test Steve's mettle with on-target passing percentage. So, Steve, through 2 weeks of the 2022 season, which quarterbacks do you believe rank in the top 10 in on-target passing percentage? It's one of those new metrics, Steve, that I know you love so much. So we figured it's passing
so that
accuracy.
Means it doesn't mean completion percentage. It just means when he throws it, it goes where he wants it to go.
Yeah, I think the metric says within a yard of like it's on the player, pretty much. Right. On target passing percentage.
Here we go. I'll say Josh.
Josh is just outside the top 10. He's 11th.
Okay.
77.1%.
I'll say Mahomes.
Mahomes is 5th, 80.3%.
I'll say Tua.
Tua is 3rd, 84%. So maybe Tyreek was right, Steve.
Yeah. I'll say
he's more accurate than Mahomes so far.
Right so far. I'll say Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is tied for 9th. So yes, he just made the list at 78.3%.
Brady
is 78.7%. You are hot out of the box here.
I will say Cousins.
Cousins is not on this list. Sorry, your first big miss.
Kirk Cousins. I was drunk guessing him. I'll say Lamar.
Lamar is not on this
Really?
list.
Even after playing the Dolphins? Okay, all right.
Not down to down, he is.
Oh,
there
I
are
know.
some traditional names here.
Wait. Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco is not on the list.
Oh, no.
You went off the radar there.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be
You went for an outlier. Now, I will tell you, there are a couple of outliers on this list, but there are also a couple of names that you would expect to see here year in and year out.
Let me say Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is on the list. Yes, he's tied with Jalen Hurts, 78.3%.
And this doesn't have anything to do really. Well, see, that's the thing. I'm looking at
who can put it on their guy.
Right. Stafford
is there, tied for 6th, 79.2%.
How am I doing? How many?
You have 4 players left. 2 are kind of outliers. The other 2 you should have already.
Mac.
Not Mac Jones.
Mac and cheese isn't on there?
Nope.
Herbie.
Justin Herbert is 4th, 81.3%. So you got 2 outliers and 1 regular.
Now, is there a minimum attempt kind of thing? Or?
Well, you're missing the top 2 and the 6th guy. The guy who's tied with Matthew Stafford.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, number 1. 84.7%.
Okay,
so now you've got the two outliers left, which if you asked me, I would not expect you to get these two. So if you can, you're really tearing it up here in the numbers game this week.
Derek Carr.
Not Derek Carr. Good guess, though. I'll give you one more guess.
Lance Fields.
Lance Fields.
Lance Fields. Wait, Justin Fields.
You combined Trey Lance with Justin Fields. That was unbelievable.
I hate myself.
That was awesome. Oh, my God. Lance Fields.
I absolutely hate myself right now. I hate myself.
Oh, my God.
Justin Fields.
No. And don't guess
I'm not
Trey
gonna
Lance.
I'll say.
Oh, they're killing you with the buzzer, and they're killing me.
Goff.
It is not Goff. So here are the guys that you did really well. You got 8 out of 10. The guy you missed, tied with Matthew Stafford for 6th, was Daniel Jones.
Wow.
79.2%. A lot more shorter passes for him. Daboll's up in the on-target percentage. Number 2, Steve, are you ready for a shocker?
Jacoby Brissett.
Geno Smith.
Really?
84.2% on-target percentage. Number 2 in the league through the first 2 weeks of the season. How about that?
Let me just say I am...
You go, Geno!
I am less disappointed in myself now that Geno Smith is at the top of the list.
That was a good numbers game. I enjoyed that.
Lance Fields.
Nice job, Steve. 8 out of 10. All right, we turn to our guest this week to talk more about this first division matchup of the season for the Bills. NFL Network analyst Cameron Wolfe has covered the Dolphins for quite some time, is still based down there in South Florida, so who better to fill us in on just who the Dolphins are through the first 2 weeks of the season. Here's Cameron. All right, Cameron, so let's start here with the Dolphins. I know that Tua is off to a hot start here, and it seems like whenever he's given time, that's when he's most effective, as is the case with most quarterbacks. My question, though, is with a line that going into the season was described as one that was still coming together, how have they given him time to make the plays that he's made through the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. The first thing is their offensive line has been better than it was last year. Last year, statistically, they were the worst offensive line in football. And so they haven't improved until being a great offensive line, but they brought in a guy like Teron Armstead at left tackle, who's really helped them out there. Connor Williams has played pretty well at center early on. And so those two positions in particular, upgrading there has helped them not be as bad as they were last year. Secondly, Tua regularly gets the ball out very quickly. That's part of his game. They like to use the speed playmakers they have in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, get them in motion, pre-snap, and then get the ball out quickly. And if they need to take a shot for a few of those plays like we saw last Sunday, then they'll do a little bit more max protect and run 2 or 3 receiver sets. So they've really schemed the offense in situations where they don't have to hold the ball 3 seconds or longer and allow guys like Von Miller and that Bills pass rush to wreak havoc.
One of the things we've noticed as well, it seems as though Tua is in a much better environment. Not that we had a lot of respect for Brian Flores and the way he coached and the way he got those guys ready to play, but the aura and the rhetoric coming around Tua now seems to be completely different. There's a belief there. There's where they think and they're telling him and making him believe he's the guy. What kind of effect has that had, not only on Tua, because that's obvious, what about the rest of the locker room and the vibe coming out of there now that they believe in this guy?
Yeah. This is the most, I've covered this team probably more than any team I cover over the last 3 years. And I've seen a different level of confidence in Tua, but the team has supported him in ways I don't believe they did over the first 2 years. Something as simple as him being named almost unanimous team captain. And a lot of people will say, hey, your quarterback's supposed to be the captain. Well, he wasn't the captain last year. And so this year things changed in that respect. And even little stuff about the happiness around him. I walked into the locker room after the game and you see about 20-25 guys coming up to him, giving him love, shaking his hand, giving him slap on back for his game. And you can tell the guys love him. There was actually a picture they just posted on social media. The Dolphins did yesterday. The Nickelodeon does an MVP deal. And so they all had slime. And so they slimed Tua with the slime deal, and they're all jumping on him and celebrating him. He's giving big hugs to Tyreek. And this stuff doesn't impact winning day to day, but it impacts your overall morale of your team and around your quarterback. And so I think that this team believes that Tua can be closer to the quarterback we saw in the second half last week than the guy that we saw over the first 2 years.
Roster question I had for you, Cameron, because there are different things and preferences for different teams across the league. They've got 8 offensive linemen on the active roster, 5 tight ends, which is a high number. And I was looking through through the first 2 weeks, they only call 12 personnel like 14% of the time. It's not like they're a heavy 12 personnel team either. And I realize Gesicki's kind of a different animal. He's kind of like a tight receiver, not a tight end or a wide receiver. But why the 5 tight ends? Do you have any insight on that? Because that's unusual.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel loves his tight ends. Clearly, no, I think there's a little bit of reason behind that. Well, one of the players, Ethan Carter, is essentially an H-back in their offense. He plays special teams primarily, but he also is like their backup fullback. And unlike most teams, the fullback is very important in this offense. Alec Ingle is going to see the field a lot. He was very key in the blocking roles. And so they have him essentially as a backup fullback and a special teams player more than an actual tight end. And then, like you mentioned, Mike Gesicki is essentially a glorified receiver. They've been trying to have him play more tight end. But honestly, that's not his skill set. His skill set's to be a receiver more than a blocker. And so 5 is definitely a huge number. But I think for their purposes, they think that, it maximizes their special team ability, and they can call up. They have 2 or 3 linemen on their practice squad. So if somebody gets hurt, they can call up 1 or 2 of those guys and be okay for game day.
What was the difference in the first half and the second half in the Miami offense? Certainly the deep ball came through, but is it as simple as that?
Well, the Ravens stopped playing defense. That was a part of it. Honestly, I think that you looked at the way they ran things with their motion started to really impact the Ravens defensive backs. And I talked to Tua about this yesterday. He said that, you can see the defense when they overreact to a particular player. So sometimes they would run Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on the same side, and you could see the safety and conflict. And so on the deep pass to Tyreek Hill, the first touchdown, Tyreek Hill ran past him. You can see the safety, Kyle Hamilton, trying to decide, do I play the post for Jalen Waddle or do I play the go route for Tyreek Hill? And that 1 second of hesitation allowed Tyreek Hill to go deep. And so I think they took more shots. They took advantage of that speed in a different route. And Tua was a lot more decisive as a quarterback. The first half, he threw 2 interceptions. And one of them was a really bad interception where he was just forcing it. They didn't throw the ball a lot to Tyreek Hill early, and so they was forcing the ball. The second half, they looked a lot more decisive and intentional in how they wanted to get the ball to those playmakers. So I think that's part of the reason why we saw a completely different offense in the second half.
Flipping it over to Miami's defense, Cameron, it's puzzling because there is pass rushing talent there. They're calling blitzes at a reasonable rate, one of the higher rates actually in the league, and yet the pass rush production hasn't been there. What have you seen through the first 2 weeks that's kept them off the sack tally board, so to speak?
Yeah, that's been one of the big negatives for the team. And they were hoping to have a bigger jump from Jalen Phillips and Emmanuel Ogbah as their duo so far. Jalen Phillips has graded out well as far as the analytic numbers, but it hasn't translated to sacks. And Emmanuel Ogbah hasn't made much of an impact either. So they're going to need some of those individual pass rushers to make more of an impact. They always blitz. I think last year they had the highest blitz rate in the league of any other team. And so they like to run those 0 blitzes. But, for teams like Josh Allen and the Bills, they dominate the blitz. So you've got to be able to get home without, sacrificing your defensive backs. I think it's as simple as winning one-on-one assignments for some of those pass rushers. They brought in Melvin Ingram, who's been playing a little bit more on the edge, and he's given them a little bit. But I think they rely a little too much on blitzing those safeties. And as we saw last week in the first half against Lamar, you blitz those safeties at the wrong time, the elite quarterbacks can figure that out and get it out to their hot route. And some of those turn into big plays. And so I think for them, it's less blitzing, blitzing, and more individual wins from their pass rushers is how they get those sack numbers higher.
Last one from me, Cameron. How has the defensive side of the ball changed roster-wise for the Dolphins. Their defense they hung their hat on it for a while, and now last week giving up all the points to the Baltimore Ravens. What has changed for them under Mike McDaniel?
Well, the big thing is they don't have Byron Jones currently, their number 2 cornerback. They had that duo of Xavier Howard and Byron Jones over the last couple of years. And Xavier Howard's the big play guy. He gets all the interceptions. But Byron Jones have been consistent on the other side, kind of keeping them honest. And so he's currently on PUP dealing with an Achilles injury. And so they've had a variety of young corners kind of stepping up at that spot. Kader Kohu, undrafted kid from Texas A&M Commerce, has played a lot of those reps in place of Byron Jones. So he's going to be a guy that if Gabe Davis plays this week, he'll probably see a lot of him, and that's the matchup I would kind of key on if I was Buffalo. The guys played really well, Kohu, so far, but sometimes you play guys who are different levels of number 2 receivers, and I think Gabe Davis is a guy who could potentially expose that matchup, and so that's probably the biggest difference. They returned their other starters, their other tennis starters. So the group is back essentially. But the other addition is Melvin Ingram, who I mentioned, and Trey Flowers, who both play situational edge rush roles. So they're still going to try to be aggressive. They're still going to play a lot of man coverage, and they're still going to try to get after you. So the core of the defense, even without Brian Flores, is still pretty much the same.
And then the last one I got for you, Cameron, is the run game. The Bills, if they're forced out of their run and they have RPOs dialed up for Josh, they don't mind throwing it and saying, well, the heck with the run game because they're not going to let us run it. It's a bad call. I'm not going to use it. What's been the deal with the Dolphins' run game? And again, I realize it's only a 2-game sample, but coming from the Mike Shanahan or the Kyle Shanahan tree, the expectations were the Dolphins were going to be able to run it better, run it more effectively. What have you seen from the run game that's kept their production low here?
Yeah, good question. This might be a passing party on Sunday. I think Ken Dorsey had 21 straight passes at some point.
Yeah, a lot of RPOs in there, but yeah.
Right, exactly. The Dolphins had 50 passes last week. And look, it's interesting because Mike McDaniel is a run game specialist coming from the 49ers. And so that was the element he was supposed to bring. They just haven't ran the ball well at all. So they've went away from it, honestly, because it hasn't been productive. They had some spurts in the second half last week. Raheem Mostert had a run where he had 3 straight plays of 33 yards total. And then Chase Edmonds broke a 28-yard run on that 2-minute drive. So those were really their only contributions to the run game. They're going to try to stick to it, but they're also implementing a new Y zone scheme that honestly takes some time for the offensive linemen to truly learn it. And so there have been times when I've watched their tape where they've not got to their block in time, or they've been out of position and it's blown up a play. And so it might be until middle of the season when they fully feel comfortable in that running scheme to be able to open things up. But I'd anticipate Raheem Mostert getting even more touches this week. He's been their most explosive of the 2 running backs between him and Chase Edmonds, and he has a great relationship from McDaniel from the San Francisco 49ers days. So he's a guy who could always is a threat to take it 70, even though they haven't consistently been able to run the ball so far.
Cameron, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, fellas. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, should be a good one. Thanks. All right, people, time for your chance to win $1 million with FanDuel's free pick'em style game high-low. Pick teams for 4 different stat categories that you think will score the highest or lowest for the week. The more you get right, the more you can win. Get them all correct, and you can take home $1 million. Just go to FanDuel.com/high-low to play for free. Steve and I make these picks each week. Steve, you've got high-low on points this week. What do you got?
I'm coming out of the gate with the Bills for high on points. I feel like the Dolphins are going to get a reality check. This Bills offense is humming, and the Dolphins have been giving up too many plays to the quarterbacks they've faced, Lamar and Mac. They've taken 7 straight from Miami. I don't think that's changing. Miami gave up 38 points last week. I think they might give up, and particularly if Miami's Dolphin gets hot, if they get hot and all of that, and the Bills have to keep their foot on the gas, I think this may be a 63-point game. I mean, I think the Bills are going through the roof. Low point, because I think the Dolphins might push them, and if that's the case, there ain't no stopping these guys. Now, for low for points, I'm going to go with the Broncos. They've got a tough the interdivision matchup with the Niners. They don't see these guys very much, and Denver's offense looks like Keystone Cops right now. They are completely disorganized. They can't get to the line of scrimmage. If they're smart, they're going to give the ball to Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. The passing game just can't get out of its own way. They don't have Jerry Jeudy perhaps on Sunday. either. And the Niners' pass rush is an absolute menace. So they've got the number 1 defense in the league. They're a little better than the Bills even.
Yeah.
So I think the Broncos are going to struggle to get on the board.
Yeah, Russell Wilson knows that team, but his team's struggling. Nate Hackett looks like he's in over his head. Yeah. All right, passing yards. I'm rolling with the Chiefs. While I do expect a bounce-back performance from a desperate Colts team, that doesn't mean that Patrick Mahomes isn't going to get his yards through the air. So Kansas City, high for passing yards. Low for passing yards, I'm going with the same game. Indy has struggled. Even if Michael Pittman's back in the lineup this week, the Colts are going to have a tough time with that blitzing Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo sends people and sends them often.
Right. It's going to be fun to watch. For me, high rushing yards. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to roll on the ground against Washington. Last week, the Lions rolled up a $191 on Washington, and the league's number 2 rushing offense, the Eagles, will do the same. Low on rushing yards, I'm going to take the Rams. They haven't been able to run the ball so far this season, and although Arizona isn't anything special in that regard, I think they're good enough to keep the Rams off, and I think the Rams are going to throw the football to make sure Kyler Murray doesn't get back in this game. I think the Rams are going to try and run it up on him, and that means Matt Stafford's going to throw it.
Okay.
And they won't run the ball so much.
All right, we wrap it up with high for sacks. I'm taking the Vikings, who've been quietly productive through the first 2 weeks. They're 4th in the league in sack percentage, and I could see them having some success against Jared Goff and the Lions. Low for sacks, I've got Miami. They've got 2 sacks on the season, despite blitzing 39% of the time. They're 31st in the league in pressure rate, so Dolphins, low for sacks. Those are our picks for high-low for the week. Go to FanDuel.com, get their free-to-play section, click on the high-low game. It's a lot of fun, and it's pretty easy to play, quite frankly. So Make sure you do that and play high-low. Closing figures for the week. Steve, I really like this one, so I wanted to make use of it. And it deals with touchdowns on passes of 10-plus air yards. Tua already has 5 touchdown passes on throws of 10-plus air yards. In 2021, the Bills set a next-gen stat single-season record by allowing a passer rating of just 36.2 on passes of 10-plus air yards. In 3 career starts against Buffalo, Tua, 7 of 23 for 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and a 39.2 rating on passes of 10-plus air yards. Not surprisingly, Miami has lost all 3 of those games. What happens this time around? We shall see. That'll do it for this edition of Bills by the Numbers. Be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use so you know when the next episode drops. And remember, when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. We'll catch you next week, everybody.